Hello everyone! In this episode I'd like to talk about character selections in Unreal Engine. I've made this little demo project in which I'm switching out the actual skeletal mesh of a Synty character as well as the outfits at the touch of a button. So I've implemented this in two ways. One is via menu kind of button selection in the viewport, and one is via just key selection on the keyboard. In fact, let me show you what it looks like. This is the demo project, and this is kind of Mom from the Synty Town pack. So you can run around with the character in here. It says press tab because when you do that, it comes up with a menu. So that's nice. I'm going to talk about how I animated the menu in another video. So this is just about the character selection. So when this menu comes up, you can use your mouse to select any of the other characters here and then run around with those. Do that, dismiss the menu, walk around. I believe you can actually just select a new character and then still walk around with them without dismissing the menu. But you can also dismiss the menu again. It doesn't really matter. So that's one thing. You can change your character at the touch of a button. Any of the characters that came with the pack. But I went one step further and said, well, you can change the character, but you can also change the outfit they're wearing. And that's also kind of cool. Those are things that we find in kind of RPG games. And I've mapped this onto the 1, 2, 3, and 4 buttons, as it says here. So Mom can now wear a different outfit depending on what you fancy. You can also pick a different character, like Dad can wear a different outfit or has a completely different style, including hairstyle and all that. Look at that. Lots of schoolgirls. So very cool. And then, of course, you can go and, pick one that you like better, the cook, dismiss the menu, whoops, and then, walk around with that. That's cool. But I've gone another step further, and just like I've changed the outfit, you can also change the skin tone with 5, 6, and 7. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 changes the outfit. So pick a character like this Dad here, change the outfit with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then with 5, 6, and 7, you can change the skin tone. And that is kind of, that's there's a lot going on there under the hood, and actually it's a combination of being very simple and very complicated at the same time. And I'll show you how I've made that happen. If you want to have a look at this project yourself, you can. I've released it for free on my Ko-fi store. There's a link in the description of this video. You can download it for free and have a look around and play around with it. And let me know what you think. There we go. So yes, this is how I've made it happen. And as I said, there's two things to this. One is the animated menus. I'm talking about that in another video. And now we're going to talk about how I made the character selection happen. Let's quit out of here and take a look at the project. It's based on the third-person demo, the third-person template, and I've condensed the folders down a little bit, so I'm only left with third-person blueprint or third-person BP, and I've got the mannequin, which is still in here from the animations. I've retargeted the Synty animations to that. There's an article on my website that describes how to do that if you want to know more about that. And there's the polygon town that I've imported via the Unreal Marketplace thing. So in here, this is really where it gets interesting. In blueprints, I have several things. One is, of course, my third-person character. That's where most of my code is contained in. I've got the game mode that I'm not using. I've got the Switch controller. I've got the bird sounds. I'm not using any of those. The most important thing is the third-person character. And I've also got an interface here, which is changeable. So that is how I'm communicating between my menu and the third-person character via an interface. So I'll show you how to use that. Then speaking of the menu, that is happening here. So under UI, I've got lots of icons that are being brought up by the menu, but the menu itself is actually passing in the character mesh as soon as I click a button. So let's see how the whole switching logic happens. It's extremely simple. If I open up my third-person character, here's the switch logic. There's a few things there's a few things, there we go, happening in here, and I'll talk about each and every single one of them. This one switches the character. That's an event that is called from the menu. As soon as we click a button, this event is called, and then we change the skeletal mesh with default node called set skeletal mesh. I'm referencing the actual mesh from my viewport. that's this one here. So in the viewport, that's basically exactly what I'm doing, what I could do over here on the right hand side, where I'm setting a skeletal mesh to something else. That is exactly was essentially what I'm doing programmatically. This thing, that's what I'm doing programmatically. So what I'm doing here in the dropdown, I'm doing over here in the switch logic with this node, set skeletal mesh. We reference the mesh and then we set a new one, assuming it fits and assuming it's all retargeted. The actual new thing that I'm selecting is being passed in from this thing via an input called character. And this is kind of where it gets interesting, because this is being sent over from the actual menu. Let me show you where that is and how I've made that happen. So that's in selection menu. That looks a little bit, there we go. That's the animation queued up. So these are the buttons here. I think we talked about this before, that each button image or each button has a child object called image. It doesn't have to be set up that way, but if you do it that way, then you have the button that displays with the color underneath it, and the image is just overlaid on top of that. So the button itself can have different color states, and the image on top of that has been created with Blender just as a transparent render from the assets in the Synty pack. So export the FBX and then just crop yourself a little square and then render them out, and that's how it's done. There's another video in this playlist, actually in the Unreal playlist, that shows you how to do that. So each of these buttons then in code in the graph node over here has an event assigned to it. So this is, again, there's a few more things going on here, and we're talking about the character selection. So each of these things is reference to a button that I've brought in here. So each of these comes out here. You select one and then you click the on-clicked event, and that creates this kind of event. It has a character as a reference, so that's my target. And on switch character, this is something we're gonna talk about in a moment. Actually, it's already opened it for me. I'll get there in a moment. This is a function that is called via the interface. So the function has one input parameter, which is called character, and this is where I'm setting what mesh I'd like to pass on. So the button gets pressed on the menu. This is being called, either of these things. Then my switch character thing takes a target, which is my character, which is a variable that I've grabbed, I believe, in the construction menu for this menu. Here it is, actually. That's the reference to my character. Event pre-construct, they call it. It's a little bit like event begin play on a Blueprint widget, and it just grabs my player character, casts it to my third person character, and then stores it as a variable as the character. And that's the thing I'm using down here. So I'm taking my character, I'm calling the switch character function on it, and I'm passing in the actual mesh, and that makes it change it on here. Now, interfaces, that's another interesting concept that is extremely simple to set up. C-like languages have that kind of concept. And the idea behind an interface is that you can, so if you wouldn't have the interface, let's just start there. If you had object A and you had object B, and you'd like object A to call something on object B, you need a reference to that. So you need a reference to object B on object A, and then you just call a function on that. If that function exists on object B, it's called, everything is cool. If it doesn't exist, or you're not passing the right parameters, the program just crashes and there's nothing really you can do about it. And the beauty behind an interface is that you can implement this interface, so you can define what the function should look like to be called and what inputs and outputs it has on this interface, and then you implement the interface on object B and object A. And then if you call that function on an object that doesn't implement the interface, the program will just fail silently and nothing major will happen. So that's kind of cool. So you could then talk to multiple objects, or you can just send out a message essentially that says, hey, do this object. And if the object says, I don't know what to do with that, it's fine. There's no major program crashes. But if you didn't have the interface, then you'd have program crashes and you'd run into the risk of, hey, some objects might work, some might not. That's kind of why I'm using this interface. I'm calling mine iChangeable. And it is actually extremely simple what happens here. It's just only got one function that's called switch character. That's all you do in the interface. You define the function name, and then you define at the bottom right here if the object has, or if the function has inputs or outputs. I don't have outputs, but I have one input, which is called character, and it is of type skeletal mesh. So that you have to set that up manually, and then you can call this function from one object on another object, passing in this thing, which is in my case the character. That's the interface definition. The implementation happens, in fact, here on my third-person character. This is the implementation of that interface. It has this little this thing here, this little icon. Oh man, I should have really gone over to that properly. I hope you can still see it. So I'm now back in my third-person character template, and this has this little icon here, which means this is an interface event. And that means it's being called, well, via the interface. So that interface needs to be added to my third-person character class, and we can do that under class settings. That's what it looks like. On the right-hand side, we've got this thing called interfaces, and you just go and add one. Mine was called iChangeable. There's several other, wasn't it? Oh yeah, it's already implemented, so I can't actually add that again. But this is where it would come up. You'd add it here. Mine is in here already. It's called iChangeable. And so that means this class can now react to that interface. I have to do the same on my selection menu. So it also has class settings. And in this case, the details panel is kind of on the left here. I don't really know why. But this is where that interface is implemented. So both classes have to implement that. And now my selection menu can call this referencing my character. It knows it's a message. It's technically sending that message and hopes that my character can react in its own way, which it does by changing out that mesh. So that is that. That is how we change the skeletal mesh, by way of clicking a button at the bottom. And that is what's being called. There we go. That's the mesh. The material is changed equally easy by pressing 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is now more or less exactly the same as what I'm doing when I'm going back into my third-person character. If I were to do this manually in the viewport and I'd select my mesh, this is where I would change the material. So I would go and change this from Polygon Town 01A to Polygon Town 01B, and that will, whoops, that's actually the skin color. So it'll be that's 2A, there we go, that's the outfit. Or 3A, that's another outfit. That's what I'm doing programmatically now, also in the switch logic, and that is under change outfits. This works without the interface because those are button presses. So the button gets pressed and that event is just, that's an input event. And it works by a very similar node, which is called set material on my mesh. So this is not happening via the selection menu. This is happening via direct keyboard input, keyboard command, or via select direct input command, really. And so on the node select material, I'm going to pick the same thing that I've just picked in the viewport, referencing the mesh. And that's how we do that. We do that 4 times. So each of these materials is different. And the Polygon, the Synty guys are great with their material. So under Polygon Town, or in the Synty pack, I've got materials here, and these are them. So they're called 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A. And that has an alternate layout of the graphics. So for literally everything, for buildings, cars, anything and everything, as well as characters. So by changing that material, the character seemingly changes the outfit. That's kind of cool. Skin color works very similar. So skin color is more or less exactly the same process. And now I've changed her in the viewport, which is why she's coming up by default with something else, with a different outfit. Skin tone is the same principle, but notice what happens if I change an outfit and then I change the skin color. The outfit stays the same. And that's that was a little bit difficult for me to do, and I thought I'm going to explain to you how that works. So it's different on the characters. If I select a new character, I'm only ever giving them the pale skin tone. So no matter what I select here, no, it doesn't actually. Oh my goodness. That's surprising. Wasn't supposed to happen. But hey, I guess it kind of does. That's interesting. Anyway, so the magic that I was trying to explain is that if I were to change to a different character and then pick a different outfit, the skin tone is always the pale skin tone. But watch what happens when I'm changing the skin color to something else with 5, 6, and 7. The outfit actually stays the same, and it's only the skin color that changes, even though under the hood I'm replacing the whole material. So I need to kind of know what material am I wearing right now and then replace the correct one to retain the skin tone. So this doesn't always happen. If I go and select a different outfit, the skin tone goes back to the pale skin tone. But once I've picked an outfit, the outfit stays the same, and then I can pick a different skin tone. So that is there's a bit of magic going on, and I wanted to talk about how to do that because you may run into the same problem here. So the materials are being switched just by putting a new material in, and we're putting in these materials, so 1, 2, 3, and 4A. But in the alts folder, there's 1B, 1C, and 2B, 2C, 3B, 3C, and 4B and 4C. So technically we have 4 materials and 3 alternate versions of that, making the total of 12 materials. And so in order to understand what material am I wearing right now, I would need to go and this is the change logic. It looks deceptively simple. I'm picking, so this is 5, 6, and 7 keys here. I'm just picking a new skin tone. This is a function that I'm calling on this class, and I'm passing in what skin tone I'd like to have, type A, B, or C. That's a string literal here. So this is a function I've made here, and that is where that's implemented. So that is, I've done this because this is kind of a convoluted code here, fairly large, and often what I see in tutorials is that people go, oh, I'll just need to take this and copy this 12 times. And that's a terrible code. 2 weeks from now, you're not going to be able to change that. So it's always good to put that into a function that can then just be called 3 times and takes an input parameter as to what I'd like changed on that function. So this is kind of tricky. So this function takes one input, which is type. That's a string literal, and really what it does, it replaces a new material on the mesh. I'm getting that from this scary thing, which is called a map variable. And I'll tell you why I'm using that in a moment. So this whole thing does grab my current material from the mesh and gets the display name from it, so that I know what is this material called. Is it called outfit 1A? Is it called 1B? Or is it called 1C? Depending on, or actually rather, is it, yeah, that's right. Is it 1A, 1B, or 1C, the kind of thing, the outfit that I'm wearing? And then it takes that string and removes the last digit from the string. That's what this node does here, the left chop node, count 1. So it takes everything from the thing, the left-hand side of the string, -1. And we're doing that because the materials, the alt materials, are all called B and C at the bottom. So I'm having a material that's called something like that, material 1, with the suffix A, B, or C, and I'm getting rid of that letter. That's what I'm doing here. Then I'm essentially making my new string, so the one that's minus that letter, and I'm adding a new letter to it. That's the one that I'm passing in from the actual function. So I'm replacing this with A, B, or C in here, like a string operation. And so now comes the kind of tricky bit. So this is string operation. We now have a new name for the material. If we had Matt Polygon Town 01A before, now we're having Matt Polygon 01B. That's what we're having now. So we could grab this material right away, but it wasn't as easy as just reading that file. Unreal didn't have a node that would convert a file name into something else. So I had to use something else. I had to use a little trick here, which is this map variable. And that's an interesting one. It is down here. It's just like a regular variable, but it has 2 colors. And a map is something extremely exciting. So it is set up over on the right-hand side here. Make that a bit bigger. up here, it's set up like a regular variable, but every variable has a little icon next to it. And I didn't really know that you can click and then set up your own map variable. And that takes a second type. So the first type is a string, or could be an integer. Not all variables support this, but a string does. So I'm putting in a string, and for each string I'm having an equivalent something else. And in my case, that's a material interface, which is very exciting. And that is the stuff that we have further on the bottom right here. So this is where I can set them up as an array. So a string, so it's almost like a mini database in here. So one entry would be this thing here. One entry would be one row. So a string value of map polygon town 01A is the equivalent to a material that I can go and pick here from the drop-down menu. And that's set up for literally every string that I'm creating here via the string operation. And then I'm basically looking up which material corresponds to the string that I've just made myself. And that then comes out of the other end of the find node. So I'm putting in the string, I'm referencing the actual variable here. Out comes the thing that I'm asking for, which is a material. And that is then just set on the set material node, referencing my mesh. It is kind of clever. It is a very, very cool concept. I just wanted to briefly show you how I'm making that. If I create a brand new variable here, and it can't be a bool, it must be something else. I'll just call this one test. And then at the top right here, this is where I would go and set something other than a boolean. So I'm going to use an integer maybe, or a string. Like I've used a string. Maybe I'll use a string here. It doesn't matter. This is that magic little icon here. Make this variable a container, array, set, or map of selected type. And this is super exciting. I didn't know this concept existed. And that's just kind of dynamite. You click that, and then you have these four little icons here. The first one is just a single variable. The next one would become an array. So this is an array variable now. The third one down is a set. Set and an array is almost identical, but an array is ordered, a set is unordered, so you're not guaranteed the order of the things that you take out of a set. It's slightly better for performance, but marginally so. And then the third one is this map, or a dictionary. Yes, that's right, actually. iOS, or the whole iOS and macOS framework, they call it dictionary. And if you click that, then you can pick another variable of corresponding values. So essentially what you've got here is a container for key value pairs. That makes this really exciting. It could be anything from a simple object to a super complex object. So you can just pick another one, like, I don't know, vector, for example. So you've got a string equals a vector. That could be a little lookup map. If you had 7 locations in your game, and you want to one is called home, one is called coffee shop, one's called hot dog stand, or whatever, you could reference those by string and then say go to hot dog stand. And rather than storing a vector any other way, you could just make a map variable and say hot dog stand is at this vector. Super nice. And then there's these exciting little nodes that you can use to grab things out of it. There's other nodes where you can add other values. You can search if a value exists, grab all values of it, grab all keys of it. This is all possible. But so in my case, just to bring this back and calm things down a little bit, I'm using it to say I have a string input as a value, and then I'd like for that to be a material, and that is what I'm looking up with the find node. Oh, actually, yes. How do you then add values to it? Yes, either via a node, you can do this programmatically, or you can do this via the thing here. If we go back to my test variable, just quickly, I have to compile this, otherwise I can't set these values here. So let me go compile this, and then I can set, with a little plus sign, I can set entries. So this could be hot dog stand, and that could be at a particular vector in my game if I wanted to do that. And I can go and click another one, and that has to be whatever, home base. And each key has to be like its own individual value. You can also go and delete these entries. Whoops, delete these entries. Or delete the whole variable in case we don't need that anymore. There, that's it. And that's how I'm changing the material, taking into consideration what is the current material. I suppose that is the reason for this little excursion into map variables. So yes, change skin tone, outfit stays the same. Change the outfit, skin tone does not stay the same. So that's why I'm just plugging in the material without checking first. I could amend that in the same way. Once I picked an outfit, 5, 6, and 7 will change the skin tone, letting the outfit, retaining the outfit. Or tab, that then brings up another character. Very cool. Oh yes, and this thing here, that brings up a little version number and what I'm doing. And also I'm elaborating what I'm doing here in this article that you can follow if you like. And these are credits for where the assets come from. And Unreal Engine actually requires you with any distribution to tell people that this is made with Unreal Engine. There we go. I've done that here. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. There's going to be another video in which I'm explaining how the whole menu and menu animation works. But yeah, this is about character selection, and I hope you liked it. Oh yeah, and don't forget, if you want to check this project out, you can take this for free from my Ko-fi store and put it through the ringer by yourself. I might change this a little bit so that in a future version I might be able to pick an outfit and leave the skin color in place, like we've just discussed. That might be one thing that I want to add there. Also, perhaps gamepad navigation, which is currently not in the project. It's just keyboard and mouse. So yeah, I might add gamepad navigation there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Watch out for that other video in which I'm explaining how I'm animating the menus. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.